Hello, Waterloo Region. You're listening to Meet the Candidate on CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. My name is Bob Jonkman. In this episode, we meet Maya Bozorgzad, the NDP candidate for Kitchener Conestoga. In Meet the Candidate, Radio Waterloo provides 25 minutes of free airtime to the Waterloo Region candidates running in the 2025 federal election. This is not an interview, but 25 minutes of unstructured time. Candidates could tell you about their platform, the local Waterloo Region issues they'll be tackling, why they're running, or what they do outside of politics. Note that the views expressed are not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. Now let's meet the candidate, Maya Bozorgzad, and she's accompanied by Darren Bondy.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for the opportunity to come in to speak on the issues that matter the most, giving us the platform and really helping us get our voice into the community. I'm joined by my fiance, Darren Bondy, who is also my number one volunteer for the campaign. And we thought this would be like a fun, authentic way for us to show folks who I am as the candidate, you know, what my values are, what's important to me. As someone in Kitchener-Conestoga. So thank you for joining, Darren.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to do this. I feel like it's a chance to interview you with questions that, you know, maybe I can sneak some in that you weren't prepared for.
I like it.
Like throw you off a little bit. But I'm excited to be here and ask. And I think as someone who is obviously biased, but also in the day-to-day, just seeing kind of how you've latched onto this whole concept and really run with it and really do care about what you're running for and the people you represent. And I'm always inspired by your hard work, prior to this process, but just seeing it in real time and seeing it in a space like this, it's been really spectacular. Even though you haven't had years to prepare for this has been a relatively new endeavor and only really have been kind of part of the process in the last few months, and then obviously with the election called, it has been go. Certainly. And your hard work and dedication to the cause has been really inspiring, and happy to be here to kind of, you know, facilitate this a little bit. I think for people that don't know you, it'd be nice to say a little bit about kind of why you're running and kind of a little bit about who you are as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Wilmot. We live in Wilmot.
We do.
You know, I've lived in Waterloo Region for pretty much my whole life. My family, we have, you know, we're immigrants and we have moved around, but we didn't really find home, I would say, until we settled in Waterloo Region when I was about 10. And, you know, I've moved away for school and things like that, but I've always found my way back here, and it's where I've decided to really settle. I really care about this community, about the issues that are going on in our backyards. In terms of my background, I'm a lawyer by training. I have kind of focused my entire career on advocacy. So it's the reason I kind of got into law school was even as a young person, it was really hard for me to let injustices go, right? You know how I can be with things like that, where even the smallest thing, you know, growing up, someone's rude to my parents, or I get an unfair parking ticket, or I have a shady landlord. It was really hard for me to let those things go, and I decided to go to law school to be able to learn how to use my voice most effectively and be able to get the tools I need to be able to fight injustices in the best way possible. And it's kind of why I've decided to run now as well. Seeing the injustices in our community, seeing the issues that we're facing, is why I decided to get involved and try to be part of the change as opposed to kind of standing on the sidelines, you know?
I think what's interesting about it is that I think there's probably a general sentiment among most Canadians, and I mean most people in any country, but there's this, we can be frustrated with the way our countries are run and the way, like, how the governments treat us and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Most of us typically just complain, you know, armchair warriors and complain about that stuff. So for you to actually take that step and say, you know what, I actually want to be part of change is amazing. And I think well, one, we need it. We need people that actually are doing this for the right reasons, and doing it because they care about people, as opposed to doing it because there's a, whether it's a paycheck or the clout of being a politician. It's for you, and I see it every day. It's quite evident that it's about actually trying to stand up for people and ourselves. Like, we represent a community that we live in. We feel the pain points that everybody else feels, and so I think for you to actually take this on and attempt to make change is incredible. And I think I wish people could see that in this short span of, whatever, 36 days or whatever it was from the election until now.
But it is important to know that, it's thanks to the support that I have from my family, from yourself, from the community, to be able to put my name forward, and for it to be as accessible as it is to, throw your hat in the ring. But I also think I felt I had a duty to do it because of my experience in law. My practice has been in civil litigation, so my whole career I practiced how to fight, right? I've been taught how to use my voice most effectively. So I think I felt like this was the natural next thing to fight for, was for the community. So I just felt like it was time, and it was also my responsibility.
I love that. And I resonate with it. And again, obviously we are obviously quite close in it, but it really does come through in what you're doing every day. And even when I think of even the parts that can be frustrating, even in the process, but it's the resiliency to say, like, this is important and this matters. And politics can be frustrating. Like, if anybody says it's not, that's not a political opinion. It is. These things are challenging, and we often get representatives that don't care about the community. They don't care about the bigger picture. They're kind of the yes man of the political parties. And I think advocating for someone like you, who is like, I actually want to support our community, support Canada, support Canadians in general. What types of things have you been hearing within the community about their concerns and their issues right now? Because again, we're in the Kitchener-Conestoga riding is farmland. A big part of it is farmland, but even that, the community feels the same pain points as everybody else within Canada. And I think, what are you hearing kind of as you're going to meet the constituents?
The number one thing I think for people is the worries from south of the border. I think, we're not immune to that here in Waterloo Region. In fact, it's something that we're particularly concerned about, especially with our auto sector, with our manufacturing, with our tech companies. We're very worried about what this is going to mean, and I think we're worried that this is going to particularly hit us hard in Waterloo Region. And I think it kind of ties into general fears about the rising cost of living, that everything has become more expensive over the years, and if we're now facing yet another threat, what is that going to mean for our bank accounts? What is that going to mean for us being able to make ends meet, and at a time when we're already stretched so thin? What is that going to mean for our families? So another issue is that, as well as, housing. People are telling me, even people that are lucky enough to own their own homes, that they're worried about their children. They're worried about the next generation being able to afford homes, be able to make ends meet with respect to their housing situation. I've heard on the doorsteps a few times now, people telling me their son or daughter graduated from university, has done all the right things, all the things we've been told
to do,
we have to do to be able to get ahead in life, stay in school, focus on your studies, pick a career that's going to make you money. But even with graduating from great universities like the ones locally and finding jobs and finding good paying jobs, they're finding that they can't afford even to rent in this community. So I've had one lady tell me that her granddaughter is having to live with 4 other people in an apartment because even though she has a good paying job, even though she did all the right things, she isn't able to find a place on her own and doesn't see a future where she can live on her own, much less buy a home. And that's just such a sad reality that we're in right now.
I think, and what's interesting is that this is something that we as individuals have experienced, but also it is something that is across the board. The cost of living, groceries, housing, gas. I mean, gas is going down ironically right this moment, but in general, if you compare it to, it's hard to do the comparison to our parents. My family grew up here, and things just cost a lot less. They're able to buy a home in their early 20s and able to raise a family on one income for the majority of it, and to then teach your kids to do what they did. Okay, work hard, get a good job, pay the bills. Those things, again, this is not necessarily a local problem, but that is a problem across the board, that it is that model doesn't work anymore in today's society. And we have to get creative as to how to make money to make ends meet, to be able to actually survive in this system. And it's just so unfortunate because a lot of the decision makers don't have that, don't understand that part of it, that people are literally struggling to just pay for food and pay for housing, and it's becoming
the basics of human living. Absolutely. And it's a situation you and I are in, right? We both work. We're a 2-income household, but we still are watching, the rising cost of living rapidly outpace our wages. We want to get married one day.
That would be great. Yeah. It'd be great if it was affordable to get married.
To have a family, and we're looking at the numbers and we're like, well, in an increasingly uncertain time, how does that make sense?
And I think the feeling in general is not even treading water, but being below the surface of the water. We're slowly drowning as we, get deeper and deeper in the water. And it's not good enough now to just do the status quo. And I think I think the biggest problem is that what we are taught growing up is to do those things, and those things aren't good enough anymore. So how do we bring it back to a society where hard work does pay off, where people who are doing the things they were told to do, getting jobs, being educated, contributing to society, are able to actually afford groceries and a home and be able to have that, Canadian dream of because the thing is too, we're not even talking about retirement, right? This is, we're
just getting by.
Just getting by. And
saving enough for a rainy day fund.
You're literally not anymore. And I think that is across the board. And there are obviously people who aren't feeling that pinch, but the majority of Canadians and the majority of Canadians that need this support aren't necessarily being represented in office. And I think, again, one of the reasons why I think more people like you should be running is because you're not a career politician. You're not someone who grew up with a silver spoon. You are hardworking and care about the people around you, but also are experiencing this exact same pain points that every Canadian is. And to be able to go and represent this area, the Kitchener Conestoga riding in Ottawa, to say, I care enough about this group of people and all of Canadians, but we need to do something different.
Absolutely.
And the career politicians, the people that are currently running things in the government, aren't at that level. They don't have to worry about their retirement savings.
Well, they're not in it for you.
And they're not in it for you.
They're not in it for you.
That is a great little throw-in of the tagline.
I think what it starts with is recognizing the moment that we're in with this election and how much is on the line, right? There is so much on the line with how we've seen the past 10 years with the Liberals go, with what we know the priorities of the Conservatives are, and the threats that we're facing from Donald Trump in the next 4 years. There is so much on the line, and I think increasingly people are recognizing that we need to course correct, right?
But is there enough people that understand what course correcting means? Because
that's the message, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is talk to as many people as possible, be on the doorsteps, to be able to directly connect with people and get that message across. Because they're being fed a different narrative, maybe from the Liberals and the Conservatives, and I think it's the duty of your local representative to give you the facts. And so, in my opinion, it's time for that bold leadership that is finally going to put regular Canadians first. That's not going to be cowering to corporate greed like we've had, our governments do for the past how many decades, right? And I think the message that I want to send people is that this isn't your fault, Like, I think too much we're told, work hard and pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, but you are doing everything right, and you cannot possibly be expected to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps when those bootstraps are effectively being cut by corporate greed and corporate greed and government inaction and disregard about the issue. You are being increasingly pushed into a system where you cannot possibly pull yourselves up by your bootstraps unless you have some sort of inheritance or
right. Yeah.
or some sort of windfall, right? You win the lottery. Yeah. You can't, and it's unfair to tell people that this is your fault, that you need to work harder, that you need a second job, that every member of your family needs to be working if that's something they don't want to do. And what really needs to change is the people in power that have led us into this position, right? We need to put people in power that are going to prioritize us first. And so I think, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the NDP, and we have really bold plans to tackle that rising cost of living. Why is it that our grocery bill is skyrocketing? Well, at the same time, these corporate giants, they are showing record profits. That isn't a coincidence. There's a direct line to be drawn there.
Yeah.
They are year after year making even more than the previous year, and we are watching our grocery bills go up. And this is corporate greed through and through. There's no other word for it. And, I think people have to recognize the NDP, we're not funded by these people. We have no problem standing up to them. We have no problem standing up to Loblaws and Sobeys and making them be accountable to Canadians. And we have, making sure that we are putting a cap as well on the essential grocery items at the grocery store so that people are able to continue making ends meet. We also, proposing cutting the GST on restaurant meals, on grocery meals, but also on, essentials like your internet, your phone bill. These are things that you need to make every day run. They're essentials in everyday life, and you shouldn't be taxed on them. These are real ways that we can bring people's expenditures down and help them, give them a break, let them catch their breath, let them, come up for air. And, and it's important, I think, and it's something that hasn't been prioritized at all by other governments.
And I don't think anybody, I have a hard time listening to an argument that says, oh yeah, things have gotten better over the last decade or 20 years even. Like, we do this dance every election cycle where it's like we get to pick between the Liberals and the Conservatives, and then the results are the same in one way or the other. We end up in worse shape at the end of the day.
Yep.
And like, even with the Loblaws stuff, like, that is a something that affects all Canadians, in the sense that our grocery prices continue to go up.
Yep.
They come before they do some kind of showy, bring in Galen Weston to talk about why this is the case, and he makes up an excuse and it never gets dealt with.
Yeah.
As a Canadian sitting here, I'm like, why do I feel helpless that
Yeah.
I go back every week and the groceries continue to go up? My pay
Yep.
doesn't go up, but my grocery bill keeps going up.
Yeah.
And neither party, Liberal or Conservative, has ever really had a actual plan to do this, and I think that's where we have found that gap.
Well, that's just it. If there was political will, it would have gotten done by now. Being told now that we're going to tackle the rising cost of living, if it was going to get done, it would have been done by now by the Liberals, and it's clear that that political will isn't there. They do fear some of these corporate giants, and
they're not in it for Canadians.
They're not.
It's a similar issue with tax cuts in the U.S. At the end of the day, the people that are funding these major parties, like the Liberals and the Conservatives are the ones that actually stand to benefit from their policies.
Yeah.
And the regular, everyday Canadians, we are not benefiting from that.
Yeah.
And it seems like an obvious choice to say, why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again? We need to give a different party a chance to actually represent us.
Yeah.
And that's what we're asking for in this election.
Yeah.
Why do we keep doing the same thing?
Right.
So I do want to talk a little bit about what makes you, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but what would the NDP do outside of, you've talked about the cap on groceries, what are some of the key things that the NDP is going to implement if given the opportunity, and what are types of things are you going to push for specifically in our riding?
So I think apart from the affordability issue, it is that housing issue. And we've seen, house prices go up. We've seen rents double. And it is such a basic human right to have a roof over your head. And, one of the things that we're focused on is housing one of the things is non-market housing, building up more affordable housing so that more people can be able to get into homes that are safe, that fit their family. In terms of, people that are renting, we're going to ban corporate landlords from buying up existing affordable rentals. These people, like Brookfield, where Mark Carney worked, they buy these properties, they move in, they kick people out, rent-evict them, and then they jack up prices. And suddenly these people are priced out of their own home, the home that they have been living in for so long. We're going to also put a ban on price fixing and landlord collusion, and legal recognition of tenant units. We're going to make sure that we put in a national rent control so that across the country we don't have the same level of corporate greed when it comes to landlords. In terms of home ownership, for those that are interested in that, we're also going to be investing in offering long-term, low-interest mortgages to make home ownership more accessible for more folks. We're going to invest in prefab housing so that we can, lower construction costs wherever we can and build as fast as we can. I think it's key to remember that housing is a basic human right, and you should expect your government to be able to, at the very least, offer you a safe and affordable place to call home. Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to ask too is about healthcare. That's obviously a concern in everyone's minds. It's been an issue for several years in terms of resources and ability to get a family doctor or wait times. What is the NDP's plan for healthcare? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to make sure that we speed up the processes for foreign-trained doctors to be able to practice in this country and make it easier for them to practice across the country, for doctors that are qualified in Canada to be able to work more easily without all that paperwork. We're going to invest in more funding for our healthcare system. It's a system that is desperately in need of that. And, making sure that we're offering good working conditions for our healthcare workers. These are the people are the backbone of our healthcare system, and we need to make sure that they are given proper, working conditions so that they don't burn out and that we improve patient outcomes as well.
Well, it was great chatting with you today. You have my vote. I think everyone in Kitchener Conestoga should vote for Maya Bozorgzad. And I think it's an exciting time to be part of this. And I think we're pushing for change, and we're in it for you.
Thank you, and thank you to you, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Maya Bozorgzad and Darren Bondy. Maya is the NDP candidate for Kitchener Conestoga. The views expressed were those of the candidate, not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors or advertisers. All Waterloo Region candidates were invited to meet the candidate, but some candidates have declined to appear on the radio and some have not responded at all. Remember, the election is on Monday, the 28th of April. Show notes, podcast, and video will be available shortly on the Radio Waterloo website at radiowaterloo.ca/MTC. The show is produced by me, Bob Jonkman, in the studios of CKMS-FM. The theme music is Falling Sky by Jason Shaw of Audionautics.com and used under